On today's episode of The Franchise, this is episode number 15, and today we're going to be going over MLB free agency with the winter meetings just getting started. Some of the top players on the free agency market this offseason have already signed, and one of the top dogs, Aaron Judge, could be signing within the next 24 hours. So we'll go over MLB free agency as well as the whole offseason market, as well as going over college football championship weekend recap, and the college football playoff final four have been revealed. Preview those games as well as the rest of the big college football bowl games, and the Heisman Trophy finalists have been announced. And then finally, we'll do NFL Week 13 recap, and we'll end it off with another top 10 power rankings, where this one for this upcoming Week 14 top 10 power rankings has a lot of shakeups, including a new number one team in the NFL. But before we get into today's episode, the franchise is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So however you listen or watch your podcasts, it is available. Links to all of that is in the description, and make sure to subscribe and follow on all platforms. Beginning things though with MLB free agency. The winter meetings in San Diego started earlier this week, and that is when a lot of things kicked off. But before that, on Friday, we had Jacob deGrom, the best pitcher in the game of baseball and the best pitcher on the free agency market this year, signing a 5-year, $185 million deal with the Texas Rangers. deGrom, multi-time Cy Young Award winner with the Mets, one of the greatest pitchers in recent memory, and the best pitcher in the game right now when he's healthy. And that is the big question, and the big thing with Jacob deGrom is that when he's healthy and how much will he play. You look at the last two seasons for deGrom, 26 starts and 156 innings pitched with a 2.08 ERA. So when he's pitched, he's been amazing, and that's been the story of Jacob deGrom his entire career. When he's pitching and when he's on the mound, he is the best pitcher in the game, and you can't beat him. But the last two seasons, he's only pitched 156 innings. That's how many innings some guys throw in a whole season, and some guys be throwing more. So Jacob deGrom, the last 2 years, has not been healthy. Been dealing with elbow, lat, a lot of injuries to his upper body. But Jacob deGrom going to the Rangers, leaving the Mets. This is a big deal for the Rangers. The Rangers have a lot more issues, though, that need to be solved. deGrom is not is not going to fix the Texas Rangers and what they need to do this offseason. You look at where they ranked last year. They were 22nd in team ERA with a 4.22. deGrom last year, although he did have a 3.08 ERA, and he is going to, when he pitches, he's going to be great. The Rangers need a lot more than Jacob deGrom to compete in the American League West this year with the Astros and the Mariners, and a potential for the Angels to be better. The Rangers, they have Corey Seager, who they paid $325 to last offseason. Marcus Semien, $170+ last offseason. But their pitching staff is very, very weak. They do have Martin Perez, who had a great year last year for them, but he's going to be making $20 million this season on just a 1-year deal. And then they have John Gray, who they signed last offseason as well. But the Rangers need more pitching, and they need more bullpen help. And then they also need guys in the lineup around Corey Seager and Marcus Semien. Seager had a good year last year with the Rangers, and Semien, he got off to a very, very cold start. He did pick it up towards the end of the season, but you can't count on just two guys in your lineup and one guy on in your starting rotation to win you ball games. The thing with deGrom is he's only going to pitch every 5 days, maybe. And if deGrom misses time with injuries, the Rangers are screwed, right? Because it's going to be the same story for this upcoming season as it was last year. Talent, but they just don't have enough pieces around their core guys to be competitive. But the Rangers had to overpay for Jacob deGrom. He is 35 years old, and he's getting a 5-year deal for $185. I know that the Mets were rumored to offer a few less years, like 3 years was the reported offer for deGrom to the Mets. He ultimately chooses the longer-term deal, and this deal has an option for a 6th year. that could well go over $200 million. So the Rangers needed to do this to get deGrom. They needed to overpay, but they have more issues that need to be solved than what the deGrom signing can do for them. But speaking of his former team, the New York Mets, they do lose Jacob deGrom, the best pitcher on the planet. They did sign Max Scherzer last offseason, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But they have a big hole to fill with Jacob deGrom being gone. So they go out there and they sign Justin Verlander, the reigning AL Cy Young Award winner at 40 years old. They signed him to a 2-year, $86 million deal. There's an option for a third year. So he will be with the Mets until he's 42, possibly 43. Verlander just won the Cy Young with the Astros. He was returning from Tommy John surgery last year, and he went out and he pitched amazing. He had a sub-1 ERA, won the World Series, won the Cy Young, was the most dominant pitcher in the American League this year. So for the Mets, they replaced deGrom with Verlander, an older player, but he's coming off of a Cy Young Award. So you replace the best pitcher on the planet with the Cy Young. So the Mets, they will have a very old pitching staff at the top with Scherzer and Verlander, both near 40 years old, and both have 2 years on their contract. So they'll both be hitting free agency at the same time. So these next 2 years for the Mets are really win-now years. $86 million, though, for the reigning Cy Young Award. That's a lot of money to Justin Verlander, but he is one of the best pitchers in the game right now at 40 years old, and he does have the potential to be good for the next 2 to 3 seasons, especially with guys returning from Tommy John now being as good, if not better, than they were before they got injured. Verlander might have a few more years left in the tank with the Mets. And then finally, yesterday was another big signing. Trea Turner leaving the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's heading out east. He's going to sign with the Phillies. 11 years, $300 million. He leaves the Dodgers. The rumors the whole offseason were that he wanted to play out in the East Coast. He wanted to play for one of those teams because he likes to train in Florida during spring training. So Trea Turner, a lot of rumored teams in the offseason. Return to the Dodgers, go to the Phillies, maybe another mystery team out east. And then at one point there was rumors of the Padres. And this is an interesting recent development that just came out earlier today. He signed yesterday. But there was an offer from the San Diego Padres of $342 million for Trea Turner. So he turns down $42 million. He takes $42 million less to sign with the Phillies. So he was going to go to the Phillies, an East Coast team, all along. I mean, he wanted to sign there. Otherwise, he would have taken the $42+ million that the Padres were offering. For Trea Turner and for the Phillies, this is a great deal. He's 30 years old. Last season in 160 games. He played all but 2 games last season. 21 home runs, 100 RBIs, 27 stolen bases. He's a 300 hitter. 809 OPS with a 121 OPS plus. He's a great player, one of the fastest players in the game. And with the recent rule changes and bigger bases, Trea Turner will be stealing 30 to 40 bases over the next few seasons with the Phillies. He's going to play a solid shortstop defensively. And for the Phillies, their lineup just got a whole lot better. Schwarber, Hoskins, Harper, Castellanos, Real Muto, and then you add Trea Turner to that mix. The Phillies, a team that just made it to the World Series, have just improved their depth offensively, and they'll be a much, much improved team next season on the offensive side of the ball. And it's interesting to see the Padres be rumored to have offered him this much money, $342 million for a team that has Tatis locked up for 14 years, Machado locked up for the next 6 years, and then Juan Soto with a pending contract extension in the next few years. They added a guy like Trea Turner. That team it would be incredible. I mean, you put Tatis either at the DH spot or you put him in the outfield. with Machado, Trea Turner, Ha-Seong Kim, Jake Cronenworth, that Padres team would have been incredible. But although they don't sign him and Trea Turner doesn't go to the Padres, I think the Padres are still in on some of these big guys, whether it's going to be a shortstop or not. Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa, Dansby Swanson. I feel like if the Padres are going to go out and sign and spend this much money, it's going to be on either a Carlos Correa or maybe a Xander Bogaerts, but I don't see them signing a Dansby Swanson. He just doesn't seem like a guy that the Padres would spend the money on. And who knows, maybe the Padres are a mystery team in the Aaron Judge sweepstakes, because we'll move on here to Aaron Judge. It's really down to two teams, but I think it's three. It's down to the Yankees and the Giants. I'd put the Dodgers in there as well. The Dodgers have lost this offseason. They've lost Cody Bellinger, might lose Justin Turner. They have lost Trea Turner now. They need to replace these guys in the lineup. And what better to do than sign Aaron Judge, the reigning American League MVP with the greatest offensive season of all time. He was first in every single category, every single statistic. Aaron Judge ranked the top of the list last season. And the Dodgers have a lot of money coming off the books. Now, the focus for the Dodgers is probably not on this offseason. I think the focus for the Dodgers is next offseason and signing Shohei Ohtani. They're going to be very aggressive next offseason in the Ohtani sweepstakes if he doesn't remain with the Angels. But for this offseason, Aaron Judge, I think it's three teams, but could the Padres, if they're willing to offer $342 for Trea Turner, there's an offer right now from the Giants for Judge for $360 million, probably over 9 years. If you're the Padres, why don't you offer Aaron Judge 9 years, $370? It's a $30 million difference from Trea Turner to Aaron Judge. I think it's worth the money to spend that on Aaron Judge to improve the Padres, but maybe they're not interested in Aaron Judge. So it's between the Giants and the Yankees. The Giants have a $360 offer for 9 years, and Judge can sign at any moment. He literally could be signing right now, so I'd have to constantly keep checking to see if he signs maybe he signs right now. But yes, it is between really the Giants and the Yankees. And it seems like right now the Giants are probably the favorites to sign him. I know that the Yankees, they're the team that he's been with his whole career, but the Giants are the team that he's grew up a fan of and have had meetings with. So it's between those two teams, and I think he's going to sign by Wednesday. He's going to sign very, very soon. Any moment he could sign. So it's down to two teams. I'd put the Dodgers definitely in there. I think the Dodgers are not a team you can count out of these star players. They signed Freddie Freeman, Trevor Bauer the year before, traded for Mookie Betts. So the Dodgers are a team to never count out of these star players. But the Giants and the Yankees are definitely the two top dogs to sign Aaron Judge. And there's still a lot of free agents out there. Carlos Correa, Bogaerts, Carlos Rodon, Dansby Swanson are all guys at the top of the market. Wilson Contreras are all guys at the top that could be signing before the winter meetings end this week. Moving on, though, to college football. It was championship weekend. This past weekend, we had the Pac-12, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and the ACC championship games. And it started things off on Friday night where we had the Pac-12 championship. This was a must-win game for number 4 USC. They win this game, they're going to be in the college football playoff. They lose, they won't make it, and they lost. They lost to number 11 Utah, 47-24. They got destroyed. They got blown out. They got dominated by Utah. Utah was their kryptonite this season. They could not beat them earlier in the year on the road. They lost by 1 point. This game they lose by 20 plus. Cam Rising of the Utah Utes, 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. Caleb Williams, 363 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Running back Jackson for Utah, 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. Micah Bernard, 88 yards and a touchdown. Money Parks, 88 yards and a touchdown. For USC, Jalen Dixon, 55 yards and a touchdown. Taj Washington, 93 yards and a touchdown. A very disappointing performance for USC. Caleb Williams played great in the first half, did injure his hamstring reportedly very, very bad. He severely injured his hamstring in towards the end of the first half against Utah. Was not the same player in the rest of the game, and that definitely hurt USC and their chances. But the problem for USC was the defense. The defense has been the problem for them the whole year. They had one of the best offenses in the country, but that defense gives up too many points and keeps them in too many games that they really should be dominating the opponent. So USC loses the game and they end up falling out of the college football playoff rankings. They're not going to be competing for a national title. Still make a bowl game, which we'll get to later. Utah, though, picks up the Pac-12 championship. Big 12 championship, we had number 3 TCU against number 10 Kansas. Kansas State wins this game 31-28 in overtime. TCU was a team that if they lost this game, they'll still be in the college football playoff. And that remains the case. The SEC championship, number 14 LSU versus number 1 Georgia. Georgia beat them 50-30. Big 10 championship, number 2 Michigan versus Purdue, 45-22 Michigan. And then the ACC championship, number 9 Clemson beating number 23 North Carolina 39-10. So the final college football playoff rankings were revealed, and the top 4 teams, the teams that will be making and competing for a national championship, are number 1 Georgia, number 2 Michigan, number 3 TCU, and then number 4 is Ohio State. Ohio State didn't play on championship weekend. Obviously, they lost to Michigan, got eliminated from the Big Ten championship. But Ohio State makes it with the USC loss. Debate for Alabama was there, but for me, Alabama never was a legit team to make the college football playoff. You look at their resume is losses. The argument that a lot of people have for Alabama is that they lost 2 close games. They lost to Tennessee on the road, and they lost to LSU on the road. But you look at their wins, they don't have many. They won against Texas earlier in the year. They beat Ole Miss. But you look at their wins and losses, the resume for them is all about their losses and that there were 2 close losses on the road in the SEC. That's not a resume, right? Ohio State has a resume. I know they got beat by Michigan. The final score was a lot. The final score was not reflective of that game. But you look at the first half and even into the third quarter, and it was a lot closer than the box score shows. Anyways, it was a lot closer than it showed. So Ohio State, although they didn't play many ranked opponents, they did play Penn State, and they did play some other schools. They have a better resume. They're a one-loss team. They have a better resume than Alabama. I would even put Tennessee over Alabama in the rankings. Tennessee beat Alabama. Tennessee lost to number 1 Georgia. But Tennessee has had a better season. I know Hendon Hooker, their quarterback, is injured, but they had a better year than Alabama. So I would have ranked them higher. But the rest of the rankings, besides the top 4, which is Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and Ohio State. So Georgia will play Ohio State, and Michigan will play TCU in the first round of the playoff. But the rest of the rankings go Bama at 5, Tennessee 6, Clemson, the ACC champ, at 7, Utah, the Pac-12 champ, at 8, Kansas State, the Big 12 champ, at 9, and then USC at 11-2. They're number 10. So some of the big bowl games heading into bowl season. The Alamo Bowl will feature 20 Texas versus number 12 Washington. The Orange Bowl will feature number 6 Tennessee and number 7 Clemson. Both teams are orange. This is the most orange Bowl ever. Both teams orange in their colors. It'd be awesome if they both wore their orange uniforms, although it would be very confusing on the field. The Sugar Bowl will feature Bama and Kansas State. The Fiesta Bowl for the playoff obviously is Michigan at TCU versus Michigan. Peach Bowl, college football playoff, Ohio State and Georgia. The Cotton Bowl will feature number 16 Tulane and number 10 USC. And then the Rose Bowl will feature Penn State and Utah. The Heisman finalists were also announced. They were revealed, I believe, on Monday. And those finalists are going to be Caleb Williams of USC, CJ Stroud of Ohio State, Max Duggan of TCU, and Stetson Bennett from the University of Georgia. I think it's clear who out of these four will win the Heisman Trophy. I mean, it's going to be Caleb Williams of USC. I know he had a very poor performance, you could say, against Utah in that Pac-12 championship. But you look at his stats through the regular season: 4,000 yards, 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 66 completion percentage, 86.5 QBR. For Stroud, I think he's the guy that's going to come in second place. 3,300 yards, 37 touchdowns, 6 picks, 66 completion percentage as well. Duggan had a nice year with TCU, obviously getting them into the college football playoff. Had a great performance in a comeback against Kansas State, although they did lose. They were going to lose in regulation. He gets them back, sends them OT. His stats on the season: 3,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 64 completion percentage. Stetson Bennett's not going to win the Heisman. I don't know why he's here. There's 2 guys that should be in the Heisman finalists over Stetson Bennett. Bennett, 3,400, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks, 68 completion percentage. He's the best. He's the quarterback of the best team in the country. But there's 2 guys that should be over him. That's Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, although he got injured, and he wouldn't have won the Heisman Trophy, but he should have been a finalist. And Blake Corum, the running back from Michigan, who had one of the best rushing seasons in the past few years, should have been a finalist over a guy like Stetson Bennett. But either way, no matter who was in these 4, Caleb Williams is going to win the Heisman. I think it's been set in stone since like 4 or 5 weeks ago. Caleb Williams has set himself up to win the Heisman Trophy, and I don't think there's any way he does not win it. Even with the performance against Utah and in the Pac-12 championship, he has that trophy unlocked. It's already has his name on it. It's already been shipped to him. Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy for this season. And then finally, we're going to go recap NFL Week 13. That began with Thursday Night Football between the Bills and the Patriots on the road in New England. And the Bills pick up a win 24-10 over New England. Josh Allen had a nice game, 223 and 2 touchdowns. James Cook, what a performance from him. He goes out there, 14 carries for 64 yards. What a performance out of him. Stephon Diggs, 92 yards and a touchdown. Bills improved to 9-3. They're now the number 1 seed in the AFC. Patriots still at 500 at 6-6. On the season, let's just do a quick check, see if Aaron Judge signed or something. No. Okay. Back to this. So the Bills pick up a win. They're now the number 1 team in the AFC. Moving on to the Sunday games. Some of these we'll run through pretty quickly because I don't know how many of you guys really care about the following game. Steelers beat the Falcons 19-16. Steelers are 5-7. Falcons are 5-8. Najee Harris had a good game for what seems like the first time this season from a guy who was projected and supposed to be one of the best running backs in the league this year. Disappointing season. Had a good game this week against Atlanta. The Packers pick up a win on the road in Chicago against the Bears. They win 28-19. Aaron Rodgers is the owner of Soldier Field and the Chicago Bears. He will always beat them on the road in Chicago. Not the best performance from Aaron Rodgers, 182 yards and a touchdown. Fields, 20 for 25, 254, but 2 interceptions. He had 1 rushing touchdown. Christian Watson is the guy I really want to highlight. He's been incredible. He has 8 touchdowns in his past 4 games. I believe he had a touchdown in this game, 1 rushing and 1 receiving. So Christian Watson is looking to be one of the best replacements for Devontae Adams that the Packers could have hoped for. They pick up a win. They go to 5-8. The Bears fall to 3-10 on the season. Jaguars and Lions. Lions win this game 40-14. Amon-Ra St. Brown with 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lions go to 5-7. Jaguars go to 4-8. This game right here, this next one was, there was potential for this game to be very good with the Jets playing the Vikings. The Jets' defense is among one of the best in the NFL, and the Vikings have one of the best offenses in the NFL as well. Vikings win this game 27-22. Jets fall to 7-5. Vikings improve to 10-2. Mike White, 31-57, 369 and 2 interceptions. Kirk Cousins, 173 yards and a touchdown. Zonovan Knight, 15 carries, 90 yards. Dalvin Cook, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. Garrett Wilson, 162 yards on 8 receptions. And Justin Jefferson, 7 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Are the Jets better off with Mike White? I think the answer is yes. I think if Zach Wilson plays this game, the Jets get blown out by the Vikings. Again, though, the story with the Vikings, great offensive team, but their pass defense is last in the NFL. They give up the most yards via pass in the entire league. That is their weakness, and that is a bad weakness to have. But their offense is great. Jets defense, is one of the best in the league. Moving on, though, this game between two NFC East rivals had a lot of implications on the rest of the season. And what do? They tie. Commanders and Giants both tie at 20. Commanders go to 7-5-1. Giants go to 7-4-1. Taylor Heineke is the quarterback of the Washington Commanders. He wins them games. I know they tied, but I think if Carson Wentz plays this game, the Commanders lose to the Giants. Heineke had 275 and 2 touchdowns. Brian Robinson Jr., a guy who was shot earlier in the year, before the season even started, comes out this game, 21 carries for 96 yards. Terry McLaurin has had a comeback ever since Taylor Heineke's been at quarterback. He had 8 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. So the Commanders, you'll find out later, I have the Commanders making a big jump when it comes to the power rankings. And the Giants have been on a steady decline over the past 3 weeks. A team that was at one point considered to be one of the best teams in the league and a team that could win playoff games. But I've been saying it all along. Giants are frauds, and they're proving that. With this recent streak of L's and ties, the Giants have just not played good football like they did earlier in the year, on that steady decline to missing the playoffs and proving my point right that the Giants were not a legit team this season. These two teams tie. The Eagles and the Titans played A.J. Brown revenge game against the Tennessee Titans, and he did just that. 35-10, Philadelphia improves to 11-1. The Titans go down to 7-5 on the year. Jalen Hurts had one of the best games of the season for him so far. 29 of 39, 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. 2 of those went to A.J. Brown in his revenge game against his old team. 8 receptions, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Smith had a game too with 102 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry had a very quiet afternoon, 11 carries and 30 yards. The Eagles are incredible. Jalen Hurts played amazing, and that wide receiver group with Smith and A.J. Brown is incredible. One of the best offensive lines and great defense on the other side of the ball. They had 6 sacks against the Titans in that game. They improved to 11-1, number 1 team in the NFC. The Broncos and Ravens played, and the Broncos are just trying to not score touchdowns. That's what the Broncos are really good at. Ravens win this game 10-9. Broncos fall to 3-9, and the Ravens improve to 8-4. The problem for the Ravens is that they're going to be without Lamar Jackson. It's unknown. He's week to week. He went out with an ankle injury. Huntley had to come in, 187 yards and an interception. The Ravens are really going to be hurt without Lamar. If Lamar misses a week or two, this is just good news for the Ravens, or for the Bengals, because the Bengals are on the come up, and the Ravens need to have Lamar Jackson at quarterback playing these games if they want to win their division. And the Broncos suck. I hate watching them. Russell Wilson's played horrible. Their coach is horrible. That offense does absolutely nothing, and they're wasting one of the best defenses in the NFL. Deshaun Watson's first game back in over 2 years was against the Texans. Browns beat the Texans 27-14. They improved to 5-7, and the Texans are 1-10-1. I don't really want to talk about Deshaun Watson because I don't think he should be playing in the NFL after everything that has happened over the past year or two. He should not be an NFL quarterback. He should not have the privilege to play quarterback in the NFL. He played pretty bad, 131 yards and interception. He didn't look good. It's obviously his first game in over 2 years. But even when he plays good, if he ever plays good again, we will never give praise to Deshaun Watson because he does not deserve to play in the National Football League. The Texans are basically a lock for the number 1 overall pick. The Browns, they have a sliver of hope to make the playoffs. That just depends on the play of Deshaun Watson and the rest of that team. The Seahawks beat the Rams 27-23. They go up to 7-5. The Rams fall to 3-9. I bet the Rams really wish they had their own draft pick and didn't trade all of them for the next 10 years to get, a Super Bowl last year. Because they fall to 3-9, they're going to miss Matthew Stafford for the rest of the season. He's going on IR. They don't have Cooper Kupp for the rest of the season. So the Rams have nothing going for them. And the Seahawks it's between them and the 49ers for who's going to win that division. I think it's going to be the Niners. But with recent news about the 49ers and their injury situation, the Seahawks are a team to watch out for because that offense is incredible with Geno Smith having the best year of his career. And then that receiving core with Lockett, Metcalf, Noah Fant at tight end, and then Kenneth Walker, the rookie running back, who's incredible in the backfield. The Seahawks improved to 7-5, and they're going to make a huge jump in the power rankings, which we'll get to at the end of the episode. Moving on, though, these next 2 games were some of the most anticipated games of the weekend, beginning with the Dolphins taking on the 49ers. The Dolphins, coming into this, have had an incredible season. Tua's played amazing. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, the best wide receiver duo in the league. They have a solid defense in Miami. And then for the Niners, they have the best defense in the league, and their offense is doing what it takes to win games. They're playing pretty solid with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Kittle, Ayuk, and Jimmy G at quarterback. But Jimmy G is possibly going to be out for the season. There's been 2 different reports. It's either Jimmy G is going to be out for the season or Jimmy G might not be out for the season. His leg was bending in a way that it's not supposed to bend, so I don't see how he's going to be able to play again this year. But the Niners had to put in Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft from this past draft, Brock Purdy, in at quarterback, and he did good. 210 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. The Niners are a really, really good team. Can they win in the playoffs without Jimmy G? Can Brock Purdy, the last pick in the draft, lead them to glory? Because they have the best defense in the league. It's not even close. All right, the Cowboys have a great defense. I think they're number 2, but the gap between the Cowboys and the 49ers is about as big as it gets. The Niners with Bosa and Fred Warner and all of the guys around them is just so good. They're dominant. They can get to the quarterback. They can get interceptions. They just allow for no offense from their opponent. And that was shown today, or in the game on Sunday against Miami. Tua struggled, throwing 2 interceptions. Tyreek Hill played good, but the rest of the team, Jalen Waddle didn't play good. The Niners just dominated the Dolphins defensively. So we'll see how they can bounce back. Baker Mayfield got cut from the Panthers. Rumors are that he might sign with the Niners. I think even if he does sign there, he's not guaranteed to start. I think you still start Brock Purdy because Baker Mayfield's trash. Baker Mayfield's not a good quarterback. He's had 1 good season where he led the Browns to the playoffs. But you look at the rest of his career before and after leading them to the playoffs, he's just not been good. He's been very, very bad. So I think it'd be smart for the Niners to sign him because he could be a solid backup if another quarterback injury happens. But I think you roll with Brock Purdy for the rest of the season. And, if Jimmy G can somehow come back, then obviously you hand the keys back over to him in the postseason. And then this was probably the game of the weekend. We had the Chiefs taking on the Bengals. Bengals win this game 27-24. They improved to 8-4. The Chiefs are 9-3. But the Chiefs are 0-3 versus the Bengals in the last 2 years, including the playoffs. They lost last year in the regular season by the same score. They lost in the AFC championship game, and then they lost on Sunday. Joe Burrow's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The rankings for the quarterbacks, going to have to do these soon because they're going to be, a lot is going to change. Still think Mahomes is at the top. I think Allen's right behind him. But Joe Burrow might be the third best quarterback in the NFL. The games that he's been having, especially this game against the Chiefs, 286 and 2 touchdowns, makes some incredible throws, keep plays alive. And then this was the game where Jamar Chase finally came back from his injury. 7 receptions, 97 yards. Smosh Pirine. Joe Mixon's out. Pirine comes in as the backup running back, 21 carries, 106 yards. So the Bengals are very, very good. They're a team that can win a Super Bowl. They just made it to one last year, and they're a team that can still compete and win a championship. And I think the same thing for the Chiefs. I had them as my number 1 ranked team the past 3 weeks. This loss doesn't change the expectation that they can win a championship, but it does change some other things that we'll find out later. And then there's only a few more games here. Chargers and Raiders. Raiders win this game 27-20. They improved to 5-7. Chargers are at 6-6. And then the Sunday night football game was Colts at Cowboys. Cowboys win this game 54-19. Cowboys are 9-3. The Cowboys scored 33 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. The Dallas defense locked up the Indianapolis Colts. And it's only a matter of time until Odell Beckham Jr. signs with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, he was just at a Mavericks game with Micah Parsons, with Dez Bryant, with many players from the Dallas Cowboys, and he's met with the Cowboys. It's only a matter of time until he actually signs with the Cowboys. And when that happens, I think the Cowboys are one of these teams that can win a Super Bowl. I think a few episodes ago, I said there was 8 teams that could win a Super Bowl. That list has gotten shorter, and maybe we'll go over that in a minute. And then finally, the Monday Night Football game was Saints at Buccaneers. Buccaneers win 17-16 in the last play of the fourth quarter. They go to 6-6. Saints fall to 4-9. All right, Week 4 top 10 rankings. Looking at last week's rankings from my top 10, I'm gonna pull it up real quick, just so I can read it exactly. Let's pull that up real quick. All right, last week's top 10 rankings from the bottom up. At number 10, we had the Jets. 9, we had the Titans. 8 was the 49ers. 7 was the Bengals. 6 was the Dolphins. 5 Vikings, 4 Cowboys, 3 Bills, 2 Eagles, and number 1, I had the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, there's a lot of shakeups here, so let's get into it. NFL Week 14, top 10 power rankings. There'll be a lot of shakeups here, and there's a new top dog in the NFL. But let's start it from the bottom. Number 10, I have the Washington Commanders. Have not been ranked at all in the top 10 all season. Weren't ranked last week. They're 7-5-1, but Taylor Heineke has been balling out and has been winning games for the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin's been balling out ever since Heineke's been put at quarterback. Brian Robinson Jr. is a great running back. Still have Curtis Samuel as another wide receiver option. Antonio Gibson is another guy for them. And then they're getting Chase Young back on that defensive side of the ball. Commanders are on the incline. They have been improving. I don't think they can win a playoff game. But when it comes to the rest of the teams in the NFL, I think that they are better than teams right below them. And that includes a team like Tampa Bay. But number 10 is going to be Washington Commanders. Number 9, Miami Dolphins. They are down 3 spots from last week. They were at 6. Now they're at 9. That loss and the performance against the San Francisco 49ers was not a good loss. There's good losses and there's bad losses, and the Dolphins had a bad one. Tua did not play like he did all season. He had a very bad game. A rough day for him and a rough day for the entire coaching staff, for the players on offense and defense for the Miami Dolphins. So they dropped from number 6 to number 9 this week. At number 8, this team hasn't been ranked in the power rankings since week 11. And in week 11, they were ranked number 10. They dropped out, but now they're back in, and they're at number 8. I have the Seattle Seahawks. Their offense is incredible. Geno Smith is amazing this year. Who would have thought that Geno Smith would have been one of the best quarterbacks in the league this season? Metcalf, Lockett, Walker the third, and then they have some guys on defense with a head coach in Pete Carroll. I like the Seahawks. They're probably not going to win their division, but they will make the playoffs, and they could win a playoff game. All right, Seattle's a good team, which is surprising, especially from what we thought before the season, where Seattle was supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league, and now they're number 8 in my power rankings this week, up from not being ranked. Number 7, I have the Minnesota Vikings. They're 10-2, and I do have them dropping 2 spots. And I know some people are going to say, well, how can you have a team that's have 2 losses? They're 10-2. They have the second best record in the NFL. How can you have them at number 7? How can you have them dropping 2 spots? And that's only because the teams above them, the 2 teams above them, I think are better. I think although their record is worse, I think the 2 teams ahead of them on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, are better teams than the Vikings. The thing with the Vikings, their pass defense is the worst in the league, dead last. Their offense is great with Justin Jefferson, best receiver in the league, Thielen, Hawkinson, Dalvin Cook, and Kirk Cousins. That's a great offensive team. They've had good wins against the Bills, against the Jets. They beat every single AFC East team. They beat the Dolphins. They beat the Patriots. But for me, I have them dropping just because the 2 teams ahead of them had big wins, good wins, and are better teams. I think are teams that can win a championship. I don't think Minnesota can win a Super Bowl. I think the teams ahead of them can. So that's why I have them at 7, dropping 2 spots. Number 6, Cincinnati Bengals. They're going up 1 spot with the big win against the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback in the league, possibly top 3. Jamar Chase is one of the best receivers in the league. They have one of the best receiving cores in the league outside of Jamar Chase, with Jamar, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Hayden Hurst at tight end, and then the backfield with Mixon and Pirine. And then their defense is really good as well. So the Bengals improve. They go up from number 7 to number 6 this week. Number 5, I have the 49ers. They jump up 3 spots in the power rankings. They're number 5 now. I know they lost Jimmy G, but that defense is the best in the league. And that defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. And with Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive coaches in the league, if he can make Brock Purdy look solid, look average, like an average NFL quarterback, then the Niners are going to be, they're going to have a great rest of the season and great playoff run, because that defense and the pieces around whoever's playing quarterback for the Niners is going to help them with Debo, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. That offense is able to do so much, especially with Kyle Shanahan, that if you put Brock Purdy, if you put Baker Mayfield, if he signs, if you put Jimmy G, the offense will be able to do enough with the defense not allowing any points. The Niners are a team that can win a Super Bowl. Number 4, I have the Cowboys. They stay at the same spot. They've been at number 4 for a while. I think the Cowboys, years past, you wouldn't say that they're a Super Bowl team. You'd say, oh, they're a good team, but they won't make it out of the first round of the playoffs. But this year's different. The Cowboys have the second best defense in the league. I know I said, the gap between them and the Niners is big. It's a very big gap. But the gap between the Cowboys and the next defense, probably the Broncos, is smaller. But the Cowboys' defense is incredible. Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in the league. Trayvon Diggs, a top corner. And then offensively, Zeke and Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and then soon to be Odell Beckham Jr. with Dak Prescott at quarterback. That just gives the Cowboys a lot of options, a lot of weapons, and a lot of things to look forward to when it comes to the playoffs. And I think they're a team that can win a Super Bowl. And then the top three for the power rankings for Week 14. Number 3 is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're dropping 2 spots from last week. Last week, I think it's the past 3 weeks, they've been ranked the number 1 team in the NFL. But with the loss to the Bengals and the wins by the 2 teams ahead of them, they're dropping 2 spots. They're still a team that can win a Super Bowl. They still have the MVP in Mahomes. They still have the best tight end and a great receiving and the best coach. They're just dropping because of the loss and the 2 teams ahead of them winning. I don't think the Chiefs are bad. I don't think the Chiefs can't win a Super Bowl. I think every team in the top 6 is capable of winning a Super Bowl championship this season. But the Chiefs dropped 2 spots from 1 to 3. Number 2 is the Bills. A nice win against New England. They've been on a winning streak. Josh Allen's been playing great. Diggs, Gabe Davis on that defense, even without Von Miller, is still playing great. So they move up 1 spot. And the number 1 is the Eagles. They have not had the number 1 spot at all for me in my power rankings throughout the season, even though they have the best record in the league. But this is the first time that I can give the Eagles the number 1 spot, and that's only because the Chiefs lost. If the Chiefs beat the Bengals, the Eagles would be at number 2. But with that loss by the Chiefs and the win against the Titans were a few weeks ago a team that I thought was pretty solid. They could win a playoff game. They have just a solid group of players. But the Eagles dominated them. Jalen Hurts played the best game of the season for him. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, one of the top 3 wide receiver duos. Their running game is very strong with Hurts being mobile and Sanders, one of the best offensive lines in the league. And then defensively, a top-tier defensive unit in Philadelphia. So they are number 1. So those are the top 10 power rankings for Week 14. Like I said, there's a lot of changes. This power rankings has a lot of changes compared to last week's where we saw very little change in the power rankings. So that is going to wrap it up for the episode. Aaron Judge didn't sign in the episode from what I can see. Yeah, Aaron Judge didn't sign. We didn't have any MLB free agency signings. The Angels are supposed to be sold before opening day. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of the franchise. We went over MLB free agency, some of the big 3 signings from the past weekend, and what we can expect going forward with the winter meetings. Aaron Judge probably going to sign within the next 24 hours. College football playoff, the final rankings, the bowl games, and the Heisman Trophy, NFL Week 13 recap, and the top 10 teams heading into Week 14 of the NFL season. Like I said earlier, the podcast, The Franchise, is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Go check out the Instagram and all of the other social medias in the bio. And if you're watching on YouTube, it's going to be in the top corner of the screen. And that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys very, very soon. Very, very soon. Very, very soon. Very, very soon.